Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some fascinating research from Dr. Sidendra S.G. about a communication strategy that, honestly, feels a little backwards at first, but it's incredibly powerful, especially for teachers dealing with, the tricky dynamics of high school students and their parents. It's all about the power of saying nothing at all. I know, it sounds like a riddle, right? But this little paradox really holds the key to transforming some of your most difficult conversations. I'm talking about that student who just shuts down, or a parent who gets defensive right out of the gate. The answer might just be sitting there, in the silence. So first things first, we've got to understand this communication trap that so many of us fall into. When things get tense or quiet, our gut instinct, especially as teachers, is to lead, to talk, to explain, but that's often the exact wrong thing to do. Just picture it for a second. You ask a student why their homework isn't done, and all you get is a shrug. Or maybe you're in a parent-teacher conference, you bring up a behavior issue, and bam, you're met with a brick wall that "not my kid" defense. What do you do next? Well, our instinct is to fill that awful, awkward silence. We jump in, we ask more questions, we push harder with logic, we try to talk our way right through that wall. But here's the paradox from the research. Do the exact opposite. Don't fill the silence. You use it. You create this little conversational vacuum and just wait for them to fill it. So how do we actually pull this off? Dr. Suhindra S.G.'s work lays out a really practical technique for this, called the power pause. And let's be clear, this isn't just about being quiet. It's about using quiet as a deliberate, strategic, and, frankly, powerful tool. The power pause is both intentional and active. See, you ask a really clear, targeted question, and then you just stop talking. It's not passive waiting. You're actually creating this focused space that puts a little bit of psychological pressure on the other person, almost compelling them to respond. And in practice, it's a beautifully simple 4-step process. 1, you ask your question. 2, you stop talking completely. 3, you maintain calm, focused eye contact. Now this part's crucial. It shows you're engaged and you expect an answer. And then step 4, you wait. You just let the silence do all the heavy lifting for you. So why on earth is a simple pause so effective? I mean, what is going on in the mind of that quiet student or that defensive parent that makes them crack? Well, it all boils down to some pretty basic human psychology. See, when our brain is faced with an unresolved question and then silence, it just goes into overdrive. The other person starts thinking, what are they thinking? Do they disapprove? Do they know more than they're letting on? That silence becomes a void that their mind is just desperate to fill, to make that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty go away. I love this because it just flips our normal thinking right on its head. We think that to be heard, we have to talk more, louder, be more persuasive. But this research shows that your silence can actually make your original question echo in their mind, getting louder and louder, until they just feel this need to answer it. The research uses some really cool metaphors to explain this. First, the pause acts like a mental mirror. It forces them to confront their own thoughts. It's also like the echo of a drum. It's the silence after the hit that makes the sound powerful. And finally, you become the poker player. Your calm, still confidence is unsettling. It signals that you're in control, and it often makes the other person want to show their cards. All right, so the theory is fascinating, but the real question is, how does this actually work in a real classroom or in a tense parent meeting? Let's get practical and apply the power pause to situations you probably face all the time. Let's start with a classic. You're trying to connect with a teenager, you ask a direct question, and what do you get back? I don't know. Forgot? Your instinct is probably to launch into a lecture about responsibility. But what if you tried something different? So here's your move. You just acknowledge them with a neutral, "I see," and then you stop. You look at them with patient, expectant eyes, and you just wait. That silence starts to become uncomfortable for them, not for you. And what you'll find is, more often than not, they'll be the one to break it. They'll follow up with the real reason. I forgot, because I was struggling with question 3. That's the opening you were looking for. Okay, now for a tougher one. You're in a conference, you bring up an issue, and a parent immediately says, "Nope, my child would never do that." It shuts the whole conversation down. You know that arguing back is just going to make that wall even higher. So what's the play? Your move here is just pure calm and control. You don't argue, you don't lay out your evidence, you simply hold their gaze, you give a slow nod as if to say, "I hear you," and then you use the power pause. You just let their own words hang in the air. This gives them a beat to reflect, and they might just soften their own stance, maybe saying, "Well, what exactly did you see?" And just like that, you've passed control of the conversation back to them. So you see, this one little technique does so much for you. It brings the tension way down, it encourages the other person to actually think for a second, and it opens the door for a more honest conversation. It completely shifts the dynamic from a confrontation into a real dialogue. So as we wrap this up, what's the big idea here? What's the main takeaway from Dr. Sudhendra S.G.'s work? It's really about a fundamental shift in how we think about control and influence as educators. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? We are all conditioned to run away from awkward silence. The power pause flips that script entirely. You become the one who's comfortable in the silence, which in turn makes the other person just uncomfortable enough to want to resolve it, usually with information, with the truth. And this brings us right back to that central paradox we started with. We think power comes from having the best arguments, from talking more. But in these delicate moments, real control, real influence actually comes from your restraint. Your silence becomes your leverage. So we'll leave you with this to think about. The next time you face that wall of silence from a student or a parent, it's gonna feel like an obstacle. But with the power pause in your toolkit, you can reframe it. It's not a wall you have to smash with your words. It's a door. And if you can just wait patiently, they will almost always be the one to open it for you.